Who do I look at for the intro? Okay.
All of us.
All of us. Okay.
There.
Have an normal human conversation. No, should I look into the camera?
Thoughts?
Okay.
No, just talk
You
to
shouldn't
each
look into the
other.
camera.
Okay.
Consensus.
Talk to people like.
Also, ask me if he's recording.
No, he is recording.
Okay.
But not yet.
Are we recording?
Scary.
Okay. Hi everyone. Welcome to the APL x Edict Sports podcast. We do a quick round of intros. We all know who each other is, but might as well do it. So I'm Vishnu. I am the editor of Edict Sports, and I'll be the host for this kind of episode. I'm also the owner of Pineapple Express, and so I'll be speaking from both of those perspectives. Dhrthi, obviously former captain of Ashoka Women's FC, has played in every APL that she's been a part of, and also been an OC member for the last 2 years. We're also joined with two Kartikays, KD and KK. KD is the former editor of Edict Sports. He's been an auctioneer, he's been an owner, he's been a player. He's seen everything there is to see in our favorite tournament, which is APL. And we have KK, who played for Kasauli Tigers in his first year, played for Club Penguin last year, also a fellow victim of Dhrthi. Yeah, so good to have everyone here. So yeah, what's everyone kind of, how's everyone feeling? If we talk, Dhrthi?
I'm excited. I was also director last year, by the way.
Forgot to, yeah.
So really done all of it from like organizing to playing and also being audience because it's so much fun. But yeah, feeling excited and hyped up.
I think you claiming that I've seen everything is a bit of a lie since I've not won APL.
I mean, we're not part of the A to Z ownership that won.
Let's say I was, although I wasn't.
Were you not? Oh,
I was
damn.
playing that year. I was playing for Hypefly FC, other legacy team, and we went nowhere. But that's by the way.
I'm excited. I'm ready to get back on the pitch. I've not played in 3 months, and I'm also excited to meet Dhrthi again on the pitch so that I can take my revenge.
That's what we like to hear.
That's what we love to hear. Yeah, I agree with that as well. But let's sort of get us started in terms of looking back, because obviously you spoke of one of your less favorite APL moments, which is your game against Red Challengers last year. Our game against Red Challengers was the same. So what is everyone's favorite APL moment, both in terms of, again, because it's such an interesting product of it in and of itself, we consume it just as much as we're all a part of it. So both in terms of being a part of it from your respective positions and in terms of just kind of consuming the product that is APL. What are your favorite APL moments and memories, I suppose?
Should I start?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think the first APL I played for Suicide Squad, and I got lucky, and everybody on the team, which is people that I know, and so the tournament ended up being a game that I was playing with friends, and so chemistry was great. Yes, Vishnu, I did not win, even though chemistry was great and I was playing with friends. But then I think that was so much fun, and we were serious, but we were also having fun, and I think that has to be like the best time for me.
I have a story to tell about that APL, because I remember that's the only APL I played. Sandeep Bhaiya bought me for Fuel Zone Warriors, and I played for one entire game against Vanar Sena, I remember.
Oh.
But we did a practice game against Suicide Squad, and I was left to mark Aryan Yadav.
The current captain of the men's football team.
In my first year, and that was, I think, one of the most harrowing 15 minutes of my life. I still have nightmares about it to this day. And it was a practice game, and I mean, needless to say, we got our asses
That
handed
meme
to
of
us.
the man praying to Neymar is on the floor.
Literally.
Sorry about that, Vishnu.
Kiri, what about you?
So I think, I was auctioneer for both the years, and I think that was really genuinely, the first auction was one of the best weekends of my life because ABA was that weekend also, and I ended up winning that tournament. So I think I associate, running that APL auction, drinking a ton of Red Bull, throwing up after that because Red Bull doesn't agree with me. That's definitely the standout. But as a player, we went up. So my first year was a non-starter, as I've said, but last year was at King's Concubines, and we had G1, we had Dhananjay, we had Wako, we had Ami on our team. And we played really well. We had a good time because we had the 2 weeks ahead of the tournament after the auction where we could prep. So we also built our chemistry. We didn't really know each other all that well, but we built it over that course of the 2 weeks. And we played really well in the tournament, and we beat I forgot the team's name, and Kante Angolo or something, which had Zahan and Nikhil, and they were considered favorites of that match at the very least. I think we were favorites in that game. We played really well, and we won on penalties. And I don't like games going to penalties that much, and because it happens a lot in APL. But when you end up winning it, there's no denying the kind of thrill that you get from it.
Yeah.
So I think as a player, that was definitely it. And as a Edict Sports member, tweeting about the final last year about Dhruva Chappa scoring a golden goal in the end, that APL screenshotted and put it up on their story or their reel or whatever. I had a really good time tweeting about that game, watching that game. And yeah, I think that's the three different parts, three best moments. Was that.
I think one of my favorite moments was my Club Penguin versus the Billies FC. It was round of 16 last time. And it was a special match for me because my friends were the owners of that entire team, and they were like constantly telling me, we have an extra jersey, you can still come, you can still come, you can still come. So I remember I went to Ahan and Aryaman and I was like, guys, we need to win this game. I know Akhil and Valli are like difficult to mark, but we need to do it. And it was the most horrible game I've ever seen because we were constantly under pressure. Valli was Valli was shooting at us like an animal, and it was lightning. There was a slight drizzle. So I think I like playing in the rain. So I think that was one of the top moments.
Yeah, and that shootout, Nisanka sending Valli home, that was I think one of those APL trademark moments where Pranav Valli gets sent home by someone who's not in the team. And yeah, and there are, very quickly before I get to mine, there are a couple of things like I wanted to double click on, which is actually from 2 years ago, because you mentioned the ABA APL thing. Those 3 weeks were really fun. If you guys remember, when we came to campus in March 2022, and in April we had ABA one weekend, APL the next weekend, and ACSS the weekend after, and it felt like APL felt like the really nice kind of crescendo at the top of that. Like ABA really built up to APL, in a sense. And so, what do you guys remember from those 3 weeks? But that entire process.
I know what you mean because I played all 3 weekends, and it was one of those feelings where it's like, oh my god, Ashoka sports, yay, community. And I think I got again just lucky with the kind of people I was dealing with because they cared about me playing, and it was 3 different sports. The vibes are so different, and obviously football means so much to me. And so, like you said, it was my highlight. But then having 3 weekends of sports and just having that competitiveness build and banter throughout was really fun.
Yeah, I think thankfully I won ABA first time of trying, because otherwise I would have been scratching my eyes out just trying to get some sort of silverware. But then yeah, in APL following that, I did, my team didn't do that well, but Suicide Squad finished third, so we had medals there, and then A to Z, who were also my friends, they finished first. So from that level, I think, watching my friends have that kind of success, even if it was at kind of my cost, was still alright. It was really fun, because it was our first taste of this as well. We'd been on campus the semester before. Well, your batch had come just then, but for us it was also something very new and very fresh, even in that moment.
Does anyone remember who won ACSS that year?
Rivan's team finished second.
That's crazy.
Sandeep Bhai was also in that team, so was Ritadi. Wow. Oh, of course, what was their name? Rahul and Pratham's team.
I don't remember the name of their team.
Yeah, they won.
HR26 was Pratham's team last year, if that helps.
No, it was some Drake song which is named.
The producers just told me that we're cutting the ACSS land over. Absolutely not. But
shout out to the producer.
Yeah, very quickly, I'll just come to sort of my favorite memory. I mean, again, my most prominent memory is the Yadi marking scenario, but my favorite memory actually came after one of my least favorite memories, which was after we got knocked out by Red Challengers last year, we being Pineapple Express. So he knocked us out. I mean, they knocked us out the night of my birthday, so 22nd, and my birthday is 23rd. And obviously, Dhruv's a close friend, and he was involved in my birthday. And there was just this really awkward air in the room that night where, like, on one bed, it was me, Dhruv, and Koka. And obviously, he's so, like, gleeful about the fact that he knocked me out on the birthday and all. And Koka was, like, really going through it. Like, we all know Pranav, our sports minister, he's one of the most sort of, and tennis team captain.
Co-owner with you on Pineapple.
And we all know what he's like, and we all know how hard he takes losses. And it was such an interesting experience to be on that bed. That's your clickbait, by the way. Vishnu Prakash, Pranav Koka, and Dhruv on a bed.
Nobody's clicking on that.
But yeah, but all of this, I mean, we've spoken a lot about what it means to be and what it feels like to be in the tournament itself. But there's a lot of work that goes on before it, right? We're shooting this podcast, weeks before the tournament actually happens, and this is something that happens every year. So I also want to know across varied perspectives what it's like to prep for APL as a player, as an owner, as an OC member. For Edict Sports, we can also talk about that. It is really interesting. So yeah, what's prep like for you?
I think it starts with abstaining from certain substances, but but I think it starts with like being in good shape. Go for the scouting games, play, and if anyone likes you, they buy you. After the auctions, I think the most important thing according to me is get to know your teammates, build that chemistry because it is required. Because I think in a 6v6, like the most important thing is passing, possession play. So yeah, I think to the build up of the tournament, I think chemistry is the most important part for me. So like you talk to them outside of the field, you get to know them and everything.
Talk to me about scouting games for a second though, because a lot of people tell their friends and players they know not to go for scouting games so they can buy them, right? I've done that. Like all owners have done that. So yeah, talk to us a little bit about that, about not going, but also about in your first year, I'm assuming you went, and what that feels like as a player.
So I think like in my second year I didn't go for the scouting games because I told some people to buy me. But first time when I went there, it's like all of us were new to, like we all came to the campus and everyone had to showcase their talents. So it was a good feeling, like you make a good play, you score a goal, and like these people around they're asking you that, okay, what's your name? So like it just like gives you a boost that you're doing something good. So I think yeah, but now I have two owners in the room, so I hope you guys buy me. So I won't come to the scouting games this time.
No commitments.
Ever. Yeah, kid.
Yeah, so okay, I think I'll just build off what KK was saying. I think as a player, exactly it's just that you want to have fun doing, preparing for APL, playing APL. I think that's the key, and sometimes you get lost in the haze trying to go for the win and all that. But I think that's largely in terms of how you should be feeling about the tournament, you realize that secondary. So yeah, I just wanted to say that about what KK mentioned, and as for the Edict Sports, we didn't really, our coverage only really began last APL. We didn't really have something for the first APL, and we had set up the Edict Sports Twitter account, and we were a small team then. We have a lot of people now on our team, but back then we were fewer people. But I think knowing that you're going to have to be at that field, you're going to have to need people to be ready to fill your shoes when you're doing your own thing, playing my own game, managing my own team. Having that sort of relationship with the rest of my team also to just kind of figure out, how are we going about it, what's the kind of plan we are going in with, and that's developed into something exponentially bigger this year. Because last time we only really had ideas for the Twitter and maybe for the Instagram. Now we have our own Instagram separate from the main Edit account, which we're trying to do so much on. We're trying to, including this podcast itself, we're trying to do a podcast, which is something of its own again.
Yeah.
We're trying to keep it, trying to develop it every single time so that we're ready to kind of put forth the kind of product which, like you were saying, it's not just the APL, it's also our delivery of it.
Yeah.
And I think that prep has been something which has been fresh for me this year, and it's something, now that I don't have the responsibility that Vishnu and Samit do anymore, isn't something that I can be more chill about as well. But it's great fun just sitting down and ideating about what we can do to kind of, make it something which is accessible and super fun, super engaging for the audience at Ashoka. One last thing I'll say as an auctioneer, the prep is just that, go look at the slides, just make your thoughts about it, decide what you're going to say about certain players, then don't sit on the day because you realize that maybe not. And yeah, just make sure that the OC keeps water for you and not Red Bulls that you don't throw up the next year, Jamali Kamali.
And do you have to like work out a bit the day before the auction in case some fights need to be stopped? Talk to us about that.
My size is imposing enough. I don't really do anything.
Got that right.
No, also just before we get to Dhrthi, there are two things both on the Edict Sports front and the scouting games, what you said about how it feels, how nice it feels to have owners come up and ask your name and all of that. I think that's one of the reasons I really like APL, which is that at least for the last 2 years that I've seen it, it's allowed people who are not the same 10 guys to get spotlight and to get attention and to get moments. And that's something that I really appreciate about tournaments like this. And I say 10 guys also very specifically, like I don't mean 10 people. That we can interview and we can feature a variety of people across all sorts of, ability, gender, etc. On our coverage, and that players ultimately can feel the sense of validation that at least for those 2 weeks, that only players on the team get to feel. I think that's really interesting.
I think, no, quickly, just before we move to the Dhrthi, I think you realize as owners that, while the main players that you're looking at, the big names, let's just call them, the team is still more dependent on the pieces you put around them, and that is always more dependent on these, what you were talking about, the peripheral players. And you don't want to call them that, but that's the way many people look at it. But that is what is the difference maker in these kind of situations, right? And you really come to appreciate that compared to ABA, which, by merit of the sport, how it is just, you can put anybody around a main player and you can still have a good shot at kind of winning.
That's how you got your medal.
Yeah, take your dick. Where's yours? Put your medal on the table.
Ooh,
Yeah.
that hits two of us.
As one of the main players in whatever team you walk into, how do you kind of deal with that? Like, I wanted to hear your perspective on this phenomenon as well.
So I want to talk about like the days leading up to APL in two ways. One is very personal, talking about like my own preparation, and then secondly, talk about chemistry. So there is a huge pressure when you're a player, when you're a team player, like you play for the women's team and your director, because when you are talking about just edict planning, you guys have a lot of fun doing it, but you're also doing it to create that atmosphere for non-players, for players also to build the hype. So when you're an OC member and a player, you're trying to think about what you can do best for like the audience, and then particularly last year, you really want to make it better for NC men who say don't feel as comfortable. And so I think it is really overwhelming in the sense that you want to not only work on it for yourself and like try to bond with your team, but then also want to curate that experience. And I think being a main team player is, I'm just so like lucky to have it. I feel I realize my privilege because I know the way that owners speak to me is significantly different from the way they speak to others, and you're part of strategizing, and like Katie said, they're building the game. And I know that last year when Vishnu was one of the owners for my team, he was asking me so much about what we should do about it, and he was playing it around me so much of the time, and I felt really grateful for that. And it's definitely really fun. Building chemistry is huge. And secondly, just talking about building chemistry, something that we're doing this time that's also really fun is pre-events, which are basically events where we build up hype for APL. We're designing it such that team players participate together, and so that's something that I'm hoping also helps teams come together, and we can talk about that in detail a bit later. But I think the days building up to APL is just like keeping your cool, talking to people, making sure the banter doesn't get to you, because that keeps things light, but then you don't take the pressure, especially if you're a team player, because at the end of the day, like you said, literally anything happens. Like there's a new set of people who are going to be in the spotlight or who just shine, and the format of APL is also so like it's not very predictable basically, and so I'm just excited to see how that turns out. And I think you can't let things are not set in stone, so use that to your advantage and have fun, and talk to your team, talk to people, and allow yourself to basically give into the excitement that is APL.
I just do want to double click on the non-cis men angle in a more serious sense, because I remember in your interview to Ananya and Srishti for the piece that we did on non-cis male athletes across franchise events at Ashoka, you spoke about how in general you, and kind of hinted at it now as well, that you do have a sense of privilege in terms of being involved because of who you are, and that's not necessarily the case across the board. And I mean, I'm not entirely sure what my question is, but we want to make APL better every time. We want to make all of these events better. I remember we had a conversation, you and I, after ABA about how to kind of make it better. So where do we go from APL 6, given that we've also had a long, we've covered the question of inclusivity in the sport a lot. What are your thoughts on that? And both from a player perspective and of course from an OC perspective.
Yeah, so from an OC perspective, I think our approach is basically reaching out to the people in power, because the owners make a lot of difference, and unfortunately the big names are also, including me in fact, because we play for the team, there is a sense of influence, and basically we control the environment sometimes and decide how people feel. So I think we're more in contact with them. So as an OC member, trying to improve NC men experience is like definitely like a priority right now. And that's what I said when I meant also about it being overwhelming, is because we really want to do as much as we can, and so we're trying to talk to as many people saying what can we do better, because sometimes we're just sitting there scrambling our heads saying like, okay, this can be done, but also this person doesn't want to be separated from the crowd and said they've had a bad experience. So it's a very careful line that we have to balance. And as a player, I think like yesterday, for example, we had the non-cis men workshop where there were people who have never played before, and it was really fun just being like, okay, stop the ball in this way. And I've never thought about the way I stop the ball in a really long time, or the way that my knee bends when I kick it. And there are people who are coming in with that sort of experience into APL, and they loved the session. One, because there was nobody watching. Two, because they were with people who are also in the same level, which all these things make a difference. And at the end of it, she just one of the girls, she comes to me and she says, if I played every day from today till APL, will I not be embarrassed on the field? And I was like, first of all, you will not be embarrassed on the field, because as it is with everything else in life, when you do something stupid, you're the only one who thinks you've done something stupid and nobody remembers it, which is the fact that nobody cares about you is a very comforting fact, in the sense that you can give your best, but we're overthinking this more than anybody else. And so I think from a player perspective, I think trying to just make the space comfortable for people, and building strategies just how we do it around big names, building like positions also the same way. I was telling these the people who came to the session that the owners take into account the fact that maybe you're not so good at kicking, but you run fast. They'll say, mark a player. Or they'll say, okay, you can kick, but then you don't know how to stand like in a position very well. They'll ask you to clear the ball when it comes to you. So I said that owners also take into account the fact that we come from different backgrounds, so that's really useful. And yeah, I don't know whether this answers your question, because of course there's so much that we can say when it comes to this, but these are a few preliminary thoughts.
Yeah, I think I remember one of the very interesting tactics, like a tactical tweak that was made last year was by Club Penguin, because you guys had Reeth and Sophia, and I remember you used both them very differently in different games.
Yeah.
I thought that was very interesting. And if you want to talk.
Yeah, so basically Reeth, I think, plays for the team, and she's a forward. So our tactic was, because we had a strong defense, so me, Ahan and Ariman, we wanted to kind of create a triangle and take the ball from the behind, and Sophia and Reeth will mostly be running around the field, because both of them were great runners. And Reeth and Sophia actually didn't know how to play. So we were teaching her along the way that, you have to do this, you have to do that. And I think she played really well. And I think, like, in some way our tactics did work. We started playing from the behind. We didn't, like, score a lot of goals, but I think our defense was solid. And because of that, it allowed Reeth and Sophia to move on their own, judge where the ball is going in the forward. And I think they had shots on target. So that was great.
And that's a sign of success in terms of the team. But also, just going back to what Dhrthi said before we move on to the next section, is I think a very important thing is that APL is a silly goofy tournament at the end of the day. Like, people, like, it is not good football, and that's okay. Which means you have to allow people to be silly goofy, and don't just allow guys to be silly goofy. I've said silly goofy many times. In this.
Silly goofy.
Yeah. But yeah, and then the next kind of big thing, which is obviously on Wednesday, and we do a podcast right after it, don't worry, is the auction. And that's a super interesting kind of 5-6 hours in and of itself, and the time that goes kind of before that. And so, what's an APL auction like for everyone? Like, I know what it's like as an owner, and it's stressful. I've been on the table, I've been on the Excel sheet before. I will be on the table this year. So yeah, what's it like? Talk to me about being in the auction.
Okay, so yeah, as a player, I mean, you don't really know how much you're gonna go for ever, unless you're completely unknown or you're properly in the team, in one of the teams. and I didn't have an idea about how much owners would be willing to pay for me in either of my auctions when I was under the hammer as a player. And I managed to scrape double digits both times. But then you'd never know, like, there's certain keepers who I would say I did not expect to go as high as I did, who went for 5-6 million more than I did. There's certain who I thought were better than me, who went for lower than me. So there's always those dynamics, and you really need to, it's kind of a potluck situation, which it depends on where you come up.
Yeah.
But it's for us to consider as owners when you're sitting on the table, just how can we go. But as a player, it is a bit nerve-wracking. You know that you'll get a team. At least last auction we knew that we were going to get a team because there were the exact number of players. But wanting to be in a good team with players who you are familiar with or are really good players, that is also something which plays in. You have a certain sense of disappointment if you don't really get the team you want. You feel really excited if you get a team which you think, oh no, we could pull some trees here. So I think that's something AK can speak about more. But as an auctioneer, the last couple of years, what was really interesting to see is there's certain teams which you can tell are trying to go for multiple different kinds of players, not restricting themselves. But there's other teams who are like, that's our person. We want to go for them, whatever happens. And kind of seeing that dynamic play out in live real time with them putting other placards or not. You can see them becoming more or less agitated during the course of a single bid, single bidding war. I think that's really interesting to see. It's going to be interesting for me to be a part of for the first time this coming auction. And it's always just kind of, you don't really know how it's going to turn out. There's going to be people pulling out after the tournament. There's going to be there's going to be hidden gems who you bought at base price suddenly turn out to be the next fucking Madonna. So you're just kind of always a bit uncertain, but I think that is honestly also the thrill of it, right? So I think all of that just kind of contributes to making it, there's a reason people show up for these auctions to watch. It's fairly dry if you just look at it fairly objectively, whatever you want to look at. But then these are your friends, these are people you've seen play, these are people you want to do well. So I think all of that, the atmosphere you really have to kind of point out, because the last year when it happened in the MPH, in the sports MPH, just the bleachers, people being stacked over there, just kind of watching, it's a different thing of its own. You don't expect something to be like that. So I think that's just something, for APL especially, because I think that's the most popular auction. I think it's something which kind of sets it apart in terms of the lead up to the tournament.
You have a favorite auction moment or
buy? I mean, there's always the fight. Other auction moments, when I was first asked to introduce A to Z FC, I was told, because it's not A to Z officially. Officially it's the entire alphabet. So I told them this is the only time I'm going to see the entire alphabet in the entire auction. And I think I don't know if that joke landed with the rest of the crowd there on that first auction, but I think kind of making the executive decision for them that they're not A B C D yada 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 and that they are A to Z. I think that is my lasting legacy on this particular franchise at the very least. I think otherwise don't really have. You kind of, I'm calling out numbers saying that you kind of just falls into a haze after a point. I won't lie about that, because it is a long and tiring process.
I did the RSL auction and it was stressful. Like it was, and like the RSL auction was in general slightly lower stress because less players. But it was like really stressful. So I can't imagine what it's like to do APL.
I think like for me, one of the best parts of the auction is getting sold, because with me that's always an uncertainty because I've always been in tier 4. But I think being with tier 4, there's a validation that comes because I've always been sold in double digits, so there are more bids for me. But I think looking forward to this auction, I want to be a part of a good team, but not a great team as well. Like I personally don't prefer being a part of a big name team. I don't want that, because I think last time with Club Penguin we had like 2 players who were breaking into the Ashoka team, and I think that is the like closest I've been to the APL final. And with my first season, I personally did not I don't get the hype because of the big players, because I do know that they can perform well, but on the other hand I do also think the rest of the players in the field at that time, they are dependent on them as well. So we're we have this player in our team, something will happen if we even if we're losing. So I hope I'm looking forward to a well balanced team, but let's just get sold first.
And just before I go to Dhrthi, I mean, obviously from the owner's perspective, you start a week before the auction,
Yeah.
or maybe
So
even
speak for yourself. You
yeah,
started
started a
during
year
ABA.
before the auction.
You started during ABA for APL auction.
Start in class 11. No. And obviously, like, you make the Excel sheet and you have tactics and you have plans, and obviously a lot of that revolves around what the tournament is going to look like from the OC perspective, right?
Mhm.
The kind of rules that you guys create,
Yeah.
etc. So, for instance, last ABA, when the nonsense mail rule, the new nonsense mail rule was played,
Yeah.
it was very clear that we would go all in for the team no matter what, and it worked for the largest part. And so, from an OC perspective, in terms of the new rules, how the tournament's going to look like, how is that how do you think that'll affect the auction itself, but also the tournament itself?
We're looking to make it more exciting. So one thing that Katie said about, like where you come also makes a huge difference. And so far we've been doing it tier wise, where you have, like, say, this category of people go first and then that category of people. This time we're really mixing it up a bit, and we're hoping that also keeps people on their toes. And I think I just also like being part of the audience, because then you're hooting when you see your friends, and just I think being in a tier 4 list also puts less pressure on you. You love when you're being sold for high, but as soon as you're a tier 1, tier 2 player who's sold for a lot, you do get that pressure. And how you talked about how KK, you talked about, like, people say, okay, you have this player on the team, they'll end up playing. That is pressure that comes from how much you get sold for, and like you said, big name. So I think there are two sides of the coin, obviously. Like, when you're a high tier 1, tier 2 player, you're more confident, whatever, you've played football before. But when it comes to a tier 3, tier 4, you get to be silly goofy. And I think you should allow yourself to be silly goofy. And, like, from an OC perspective, like you've all said, it's a lot to handle. We're trying to make rules as clear as possible, and we have POCs with all owners so that, we get doubts out of the way as quickly as possible. And even with players and non-players, trying to keep things as open as possible so that they're in the loop about things. And yeah, I think just clarity is a very boring but very important part of the process when you're in the OC and thinking about and planning the auction.
Yeah. And just before we go to the next section, the pre-events are very important this time, right? And yeah, I know we've spoken about the pre-events as building chemistry, but also, do you think there's a premium on chemistry now because the pre-events are important during the auction?
So I'm hoping that people who are watching this video have read the rule book, etc. But for those who haven't, the pre-events now contribute to your standing later on. So the reason why we did this is because as soon as things have stake, people give more. And so, like, maybe players will now show up, owners will really ask and, bring in their players as well. So chemistry is almost forced onto you. And yeah, pre-events now are more important, bigger deals, and we're going to be having fun.
Right.
I think I was a bit nervous when I first heard that the pre-events might decide what happens in the tournament, because I wasn't sure if that is like a puts more pressure on it. It also, I didn't think that many owners would be satisfied by it. But I think the way it is now, where it decides the seedings of the draws of the groups, I think that is a great tool. I think it makes sense, because then you kind of have it on your own hands about how your chances about getting out of that particular group. And then another thing in the last couple of years, which has been an issue for a few owners, a few players, is that the third place rule is kind of confusing and also kind of up in the air. You don't really know how it's going to go about. So using the rule to kind of make sure that you can have another set of games in which you have it in your own hands to kind of go on into the knockouts, and then to make sure that even if you're on the losing end, that you can still you have to go out and win if you're not one of the teams who have enough points to kind of go through. So I think it adds more agency, which is, I think, the opposite of what the concern was earlier. And I think in that sense, it's generally a very good rule to kind of, both in the lead up to the tournament, of course, because it's a set of really fun games. You see the reels on Instagram and all. You see the cartoons, and I don't even remember when I saw the cartoons when I was younger. But to have it being played out on campus is going to be insanely fun. And to have stakes behind it is going to be doubly nerve-wracking, but also really fun to kind of watch.
And I'm just hoping that it's like the right amount of nerve-wracking. Like, it isn't the stakes aren't like huge. Like, you don't win APL if you win the pre-events, but then it is some amount of like bearing on your future, I guess.
Head of
I think those-
champions will never seen that.
I think those third place playoffs will be too fun. Like those will be the best games.
Yeah, I
Uh,
think so, yeah.
But yeah, let's sort of move on to. I mean, we've spoken big time in terms of the fun stuff that happens in
Mhm.
around APL, but it is also a rough time in terms of it is challenging. It is a lot of
Yeah.
work. And so again, from various perspectives, what are the challenges like? What makes APL tough and tougher than many other tournaments?
I think I won't like. I think it's. I don't think it's tough to some extent because I think first of all you should play it for fun. Like it's just a fun tournament, but I think like that fun gets like it gets behind when you learn about the prize money, you learn about the stake, you learn about all of the strategies that the owners and like some players have put into it. So I think it's challenging to deal with that. It's challenging to keep up with your fitness levels because like playing 10 minutes running all around the field is very tough.
16 minutes.
Okay, it's changed now. So 16 minutes it'll be more tough. But yeah, I think it shouldn't be challenging in a way. It should just be like we should just play for like pure pleasure. And winning should be like a byproduct of it if you win. But
Yeah.
even if you lose, then it's fine only. Like nothing has happened. Like I see all of the fights that happened last time also. I was like it was fun watching it, but like understanding it took me a lot of time. I couldn't understand it because I just didn't understand why they were fighting. But I think like with the huge like prize pool at
Yeah.
stake, I think people do get like
Yeah.
serious about the game.
I don't even think it's the prize pool, honestly, because as somebody involved in the fights, I just, you do get caught up in the heat of the moment, and the tempers do flare up, and that's just the nature of sports in general. Just forget, not just even football. It does happen that you're putting it out there, you're running around, you're getting your shins bit into by somebody's studs, you're getting shoved around, you're hitting the floor, getting scraped up. It is bound to get a reaction of people. You think that the ref is being unfair towards you sometimes, you're going to be a bit pissed about that. You think that the other set of owners, the other team's owners are yapping at you about some, whatever's going on, you think it's unfair, you think it's distracting you. All that does contribute to the heat of it, and in my first APL year, it did get a little bit ugly because we had some tensions within the team itself. And that can be a challenge. If you don't find the right balance of chemistry, you usually do, because most people are like, they will be willing to be a good teammate, be a good friend, get to know you. And that is true for the first year I was here also, but it does, if it doesn't work out on the pitch, which it wasn't for us, it causes rifts also within the team, and that's not particularly fun when you don't really know the people that you're kind of tight,
I think
tense with in that moment.
I think to add on to that, I think I remember we were so like I think there's this one issue that always arises is that so like when there are like 2 or 3 tier 1 tier 2 players and then there are like a lot of tier 3 tier 4 players, then like who's good, who's not. So and that creates a lot of like tension in the team because like there are players who want more playing time but they're not getting because like what if we put we lose and this and that. I think that can also be challenging to deal with. That it will be challenging because I think in Penguin also last year we had some tensions, but it was resolved in the end due to something I don't know. But yeah, I think one of them is a major challenge, like to create this understanding between on how like on which player should get how much playing time or everyone should get an equal playing time, something along those lines.
Can I just bring up, before you move to the can I just bring up the Edict perspective of it also?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think our most challenging event is always Agnipath. I think just because of the scale of it, how much you have to run around. So compared to that, for us, APL was definitely easier last year when we were doing it. But we have expectations of our own about how we want the tweets to look, how we want the process to go. This is something happened during ABA, very little thing, but like the way you told me don't code tweet, even things like that, just to have that kind of lines of communication sorted out. It is a bit of a challenge from the Edict front when we want to push out content rapidly. It is going to take a lot out of us who are also involved in other ways, because a lot of us are, a lot of people want to be. It's just that kind of circle, right? So I think it will be more challenging now. Same as the ambitions just being greater now, the challenges will also be greater for us this semester, this APL. So I think just looking at that is something that I wanted to point out from our perspective.
Also, there's an added sense of pressure, at least that I feel as editor, and I think the entire team feels, because I think we're more embedded with the community. You may be able to answer this
Yeah.
better than we've ever been.
Mm-hmm.
And I know for a fact that there are athletes that read our tweets before they go to bed, and they're engaging with Instagram content, and they care about what we write about them. That's something that I was really surprised by.
same, yeah.
Through Bhat
Agreed.
Championship, through ABA, I was like, it was quite
Yeah.
interesting to see that. And obviously, like, you're from the other end of that, so you'll be able to talk about it better. And so now I try to be even more careful and more generous, and but also like critical
Yeah.
in terms of how we cover these events, because I know that the main stakeholders actually care about how we cover these events, and that's something that's quite new to us.
Yeah.
And we have a place in the Ashoka sports fraternity, which I didn't know we could create so fast. But yeah.
That's yeah. Just thinking about challenges, I feel like it's not completely along the same lines as you guys, because for me something that affected me a lot was again going back to NC men not having good experiences. And sometimes when I'm in a position where I'm with good owners, with people who actually, it's not always the case that they talk to even people on the team with respect, because even I've had bad experiences. But I think it's really tough to navigate that, one, because it takes up a lot of like confidence, energy for them to even speak up about it, even if it's something small. And then secondly, like, you wonder what the remedial measures are, and you're really desperate to do something about it, but then the like the other side doesn't want to do anything about it, like they don't want to take further action, but they also want something in place. So it's a very difficult position there, and I think that continues to be one of my biggest challenges, because I know that NC men comfort and just experience is significantly different from cis men, because like AK was saying, there's also a skill difference where people want to play more, but at the same time there's a whole like almost like a team unsaid communication where they're like, no, you don't play that well, so you're not going to get to play. But then when there's an added layer of them being a non-cis men player, it's very tough. And one rule that we're hoping that is now laying out the base for more equal playing time is that all players have to be on the field for 1 minute. And this hopefully then the owners will start investing on their players more, because of how 1 minute can change the way the game goes. Like, let's say for 1 minute the person who you're building your strategy around or something just changes because they have to go out, and something along the lines of a new player coming in, and you know that that person being in this position can affect your game. You're going to have to invest more time on your players, which then hopefully goes back to play owners treating players better. And I think my dream, my hope for APL is that it builds on mistakes that it's made, on new things that it creates, and like there's almost like a trickle down effect. Say right now we start with 1 minute per player, 1 minute per player mandatory. Hopefully that then translates into better player treatment, and then we'll see how we can build from that next year. And yeah, I think those are some very widespread and serious challenges that I've faced both as a player and as an OC member, because I've never played as a player who is not tier 1. To say it as is. I've been on the team from the start, and so it's always been like, I've worked in a position of power even when I was not OC member, or even when I was something or the other. So I think that's something that I'm hoping to just hope that APL continues to work on it. That's something that I'm constantly thinking about.
Because unfortunately these are not issues that are that easy to solve also, right?
Yeah.
Just because of the way the sport works, there are going to be people who are better suited to a certain situation. And those are not easy calls to make. You don't like telling people that, you're not starting this game, you're going to be coming off. Because these are perfectly likable people who you think are good players in a lot of situations, who just don't fit into the kind of the kind of thing that you're imagining. And kind of communicating that can be tough, and trying to get to a middle ground there can it's tough, and it is disappointing. Having been on the end of that, it is disappointing. Having to do that is also it's not as easy. It's not it's something the players need to realize, is that it's not out of a sense of misanthropy or even hostility that we're doing that.
But yeah, I think those are all like very important sort of notes. But the hopeful thing is that the OC and some of the owners and a lot of the players, this is something that we're aware of, and hopefully
100%.
trying to continue to work towards. And on that note, I think we should sort of go towards the last question, which is, what are you guys looking forward to at this year's APL at this stage? We'll revisit this question after the auction as well. But at this stage, what are you looking forward to the most? Yeah, go ahead.
Watch everybody say, I look forward to winning, I'm gonna win.
Yeah, in one sentence.
Oh, no, why don't you start?
One sentence. I can't do one sentence.
Speak. We cut it down to one
So
sentence.
last APL for a lot of the legacy teams, the teams which have been here for a long time, we want to make it memorable, we want to make it fun, we want to see how we can leave it on a good note. And I think just saying goodbye to the APL from a player perspective, an A to Z perspective, an Edict perspective, it's going to be challenging because I do love APL, but it's going to be that's something that is the significant part of it.
I have one sentence. I really want to score a goal. Radha Gupta has been the only non-cis man to score so far, and so I gotta get there. Sorry, KK, if I stole your answer. He looked at me being like,
Actually, I do also hope scoring a goal
We both will
because
do
I
it.
haven't scored in a very long time in a tournament. So that feeling would be great.
you and I both.
My answer is actually there are some things that you get only in APL. Some characters. And so I'm looking forward to all kinds of interesting characters. I'm looking forward to whatever Vanshogani is going to cook for us this APL
Another sort of backflip, sort of
More backflips.
because he's always so fun to watch. There are Vanar Sena type people. So I'm just interested about what quirky things are going to come out of this APL.
Actually, I'm interested about the next big player
Hmm.
that
Yeah,
shows
or
up at
next
every
big team.
APL. Next big team or the
Yeah,
next big
I'm looking forward to some surprises, really.
Yeah.
I want people to stop saying Ashtapa's name. I think he
Yeah.
also really does not want it. So,
Anyway, we'll cover all this. Yeah. I'm
Producers
being
will
yelled at
speed up.
currently, so we'll cover all this in our post-auction episode. We will have a post-auction episode. We'll have an episode after the tournament as well. And please stay tuned to APL Ashoka and Edict.Sports for all-round APL coverage. Thank you everyone for joining us,
Thanks,
all three
Vishnu.
of you,
Thank you, Vishnu.
and thank you everyone for watching. Yeah, good job guys.
Peace.
amazing.
Food on APL. Food on APL.
Calm down. 3:15 tak TKS is open. Bye guys.